couple words, if you want to come up with some words to be friends with. 1, curiosity. The power of questions, can't beat it. 2, clarity. Clarity is king. Anyone that works with me knows that I say clarity is king all the time. A lot of times I'll have an athlete where I'll say, hey, what are you going to work on? Like I have an athlete right now that's at MTF, and I messaged him before I came here. It's like, hey, what are you going to work on today? I'm going to work on corners. That's not clear enough. Gain clarity. What do you mean you're going to work on corners? What does that even look like? And if I can't see what you're working on and see what the potential outcome is, then I don't have clarity. So my next question would be like, okay, well, what about the corners? Well, I'm going to work more on the entry speed. Okay, but like, what about entry speed? Like, are you going to get off the brakes sooner? Are you going to get on the gas earlier? Like, what exactly are you going to do? And you keep asking questions to gain clarity. And then the questions, once you get to the point where you can't ask any more questions, usually that's the end point, and that's where clarity resides. So you have the power of curiosity. We have the power of clarity. You also have the power of perspective. When you change when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And so that also relates to the meaning, value, and importance that you put on things. So it's like, why don't you change the way you look at this? And once you do that, you change your perspective, everything changes, especially the emotional response you have to the thing. So you have clarity, you have curiosity, you have perspective, and also acceptance. I would say that would be like the fourth one, which is, if you resist things, they persist. And so if something, once again, bad goes wrong and you're like, oh my God, that should never have happened, you can't change it. So like, why are you resisting it? So acceptance is not, but it's where people get stuck with that is acceptance doesn't mean you tolerate it, because everyone's like, well, it's not okay. My wife left me. I'm not going to accept that. Okay, but you're screwing yourself more by resisting what is. I'm not saying that it's okay, but I'm saying if you accept it because it's out of your control, you're definitely going to be in a much better emotional state than resisting it. And also you're going to keep the problem, it's going to start to grow, because you're putting energy into it. The resistance is like energy against it. It's almost like power versus force. You're trying to force something, whereas you use power. Like if you study any of the Bruce Lee stuff, he's like, be water, my friend. It's like, don't, flow with the river, and then deviate, off of it, but don't go against it, and a lot of times I think that's a mistake a lot of people make, is they try to force things and they try to push things. Like a lot of athletes, one of the sayings I can't stand, like, how bad do you want it? If you want it bad enough. No, if you want it bad enough, that means you don't have the thing.
Yeah.
So you have to watch out for energy. Energy and emotions are very, very important, and you have to manage them properly.
On the topic of clarity, I just thought of what I'm going to work on. I'm going to the track today.
Nice.
I'm going to just focus on landing each jump into because 508 is a really wide open track, but it does have a lot of jumps that go into corners. Mm-hmm. And all of those jumps, I'm going to just stay on the throttle a little bit longer, get on the gas a little bit harder. Mm-hmm. So entry speed, but more specifically, just harder throttle right when I land. Yeah. Because otherwise I would have done today, and maybe I would have just done a 30-minute moto and not thought about much.
Yes. Never do a 30-minute moto. Never use that phrase ever again. It's just set one intention. And what you just said was perfect. And then what you got to do, and then you think about what you can do. Now you can start to imagine it. Now you can start to think about it. Now, let me ask you this. I want to see if you get this one right. Where do you think the resistance will be to you doing that? To you executing on your intention?
What if for me, what would the resistance be?
Yeah.
Not having my attention on that intent, like forgetting.
So yes, that's true. So 100%. But what's interesting is our nervous system is set up. Think about comfortable. Think about how many people say, I got to get comfortable. I need to feel comfortable to go fast. People already have this condition where I have to feel comfortable. Okay, but you can only feel comfortable based on replicating what you've already experienced, because then it's familiar, it's safe, it's comfortable. Our bodies have one goal. Two. It's to be safe, number one. That's number one goal. And number two, replicate. That's it. But think safety. Your body only feels safe when it's in a familiar. That's why think about it. You go to the grocery store. If you're like me, I park in more or less the same parking spot every time. If I go to restaurants, I usually go to the same 3 restaurants, and then I usually try to sit at the same table, and I try to order the same food. It's because our body is always looking for what's safe, what's known and certain and familiar, right? And so where your resistance is today, most likely, and you need to be aware of it, because if you're aware of it, you can push through it, is you are going to want to stay, your body, not consciously, but subconsciously, your body's going to want to stay with what's familiar, certain, and known, which is what you've always done, which is to have this certain amount of throttle that you've always done, which gets you the lap time that you've always gotten. When that feeling comes up where you feel uncomfortable and it feels unfamiliar because you're starting to give it a little bit more gas a little earlier, or whatever it is that you focus on, you need to be aware of that feeling and you need to lean into it, right? And be like, oh, wow, I know what this is. And if you just shine a light on it and you're like, oh, I know what this is. You're trying to you're trying to keep me in my comfort zone, but I know that growth and improvement and speed is me dipping out of the comfort zone into the growth zone for a little bit, then maybe coming back. That should always be your cadence, right? So you're getting clear on your intentions, crystal clear on them, and then you're realizing that when you dip out of them, you can't stay dipped out of your comfort zone for too long because it just doesn't feel good. But then what you do is you kind of just keep dipping out, coming back, dipping out, coming back. And then what happens is over time, your threshold just kind of rises. So now all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, it doesn't feel so bad to get on the throttle, like right where that little post is, that yellow post. It's like, wow, actually now I can do it. The only reason you can do it is you trained your body to prune the old version of your nervous system that was wanting to do it maybe a foot further past. And now all of a sudden you're doing it like right at the apex or right wherever this marker is. And you're basically pruning the nerve and then you're activating a new neuronal response. And if you get enough reps in, eventually that now becomes the new comfortable. And then that's the cadence, that's like the rhythm you want. And you keep dipping out, coming back, and then just everything starts to rise up.
If you guys enjoyed this podcast clip and you want to listen to full episodes, go download them. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and I think that's it. Go download them there. Give them a listen. If you want to watch full episodes, which I tell you what, it's even better to do that, go to club.themotoacademy.com because Moto Academy subscribers inside of the app have exclusive access to watch the entire episodes. And not only that, the subscribers actually can send in their questions to be answered on the podcast as well. Club.themotoacademy.com. Go subscribe.